Hi, this is Meredith with the Cedar Rapids Public Library, and you're joining us for Read Woke. Today we have a very special guest, Ms. LaNisha Cassell with the African American Museum of Iowa. So good morning. Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks so much for having me, Meredith. I'm really excited to be able to be with the public library today and to share with you. So thanks so much for inviting me.
It really is our pleasure. To start out, I was wondering, would you do us the favor of kind of introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about maybe how you got to the African American Museum of Iowa and what you do there?
Sure, not a problem at all. Well, I'm happy to be here and to talk to you more about the museum and what's happening around us. So I've been with the museum almost 5 years. It'll be 5 years this coming February. And I came from the Marion School Foundation, where I was the executive director there for about 11 years. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. And I know the first question most folks ask me is, what brought you to Iowa? Well, my husband, who I met on the East Coast, is from Iowa. He was born in Liberia, but he was raised here in Cedar Rapids and went to school here. And when he left Iowa State, he went to Baltimore to join his brother. And we met at a camp, a Christian camp, as counselors in New York. And
That's so charming.
within 6 months, within 6 months we were engaged. And 6 months after that, we got married. And he had a job opportunity here in Cedar Rapids at Jane Boyd Community House. And so we moved to Cedar Rapids back in June 2004. And we have been here ever since, raising our two children, Lydia and Solomon. And yeah, I've been really excited about the things that we've been exposed to and experienced here in Cedar Rapids. And it's been a great opportunity to be able to grow and to raise our children and to become, very involved in our community. So we've been really appreciative of the things we've been able to do and accomplish here in Cedar Rapids.
Well, that was, when you told me about where you've been and where you've come from, the first thing I thought was, what a great asset to the community you are, and having these different experiences, different sizes of cities. And, I think that that's part of what makes Cedar Rapids so great.
Yeah,
Honestly,
absolutely. We've enjoyed our time here. And again, I said my husband's from here, so that made my transition a lot easier because I was able to meet people through him and of course through our church connection. And of course, and Marion having been there so long, it was a great way for me to really learn the nuances of these communities, these smaller communities than what I'm used to. And honestly, I feel like Cedar Rapids is like that big little city.
Yeah.
So it has a feel of a larger city just because of the arts and culture. So that's another reason why I really enjoyed my time at the museum. I don't have a museum background, but my background is in managing people and leading people in fundraising. And so that was what appealed to me about the museum. And of course, over time, I've really developed my passion for sharing history and for learning about history, and particularly African American history, and making sure that Iowans are educated about African American impact here in the state. So that's been a real eye-opener for me and a learning experience, and I'm really pleased to be able to communicate that to everyone I come across, all of our patrons, our members, and our donors.
Well, I think the African American Museum of Iowa is such a dynamic organization too. Like, when I used to live around here, I moved away and came back, and it's like it was just here. And all the things you do are really, you have such a robust kind of repertoire of things that you can offer between education and exhibits and tours. Do you want to speak a little bit about what's going on at the African American Museum right now?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate that because one of the things I really wanted to do when I got here 5 years ago is to really expand our reach, to increase our visibility and awareness. Because a lot of people have expressed that they had never been here before and they lived here and they've been here for a long time, or that they didn't know what we did and who our audience was. And, obviously we're open to all. We want people to come in, everybody to come in and learn about African-American history and culture as it relates to Iowa. And we do have a lot of programming. Obviously the pandemic changed the landscape of everybody's offerings, everywhere. And so we're definitely a part of that. But we've done a really great job, I think, and my team is wonderful, of adapting to the current needs. And so we still have programs that we offer in person and virtual. We do presentations. We have, of course, our exhibit, which of course we just opened a new one. I know we'll talk about that later. And we do open up our exhibit. We have traveling exhibits that we put together ourselves, and then we ship out to various locations, or people pick them up from us. We also entertain traveling exhibits from other institutions. For instance, Smithsonian exhibit was here just a few months ago, and that was really exciting. And we offer workshops and other programming. We offer entertaining programs that also educate, like our concert series that we have not been able to hold this year, but we have had musical performances that we not only use to entertain, but also to educate about African American impact on music. We have education series where we cater to youth, school-age children. We talk about significant contributions from African Americans in science and invention, and so many other aspects of our society. So we do have a lot to offer, and there's more to come. So I hope people will stay tuned to our website and to our social media platforms to make sure they're aware of everything that we have happening right now.
Do you mind going into a little more depth about what the exhibit is right now? Because I feel like it's so perfect and timely. And
Absolutely.
like you said, just because people might not know that you're open for foot traffic, tell them what they're missing.
I will. So it's interesting, you know, we are always probably about 2 to 3 years ahead with our exhibit planning, just because of financial responsibilities. We have to, you know, constantly seek grant opportunities. And so we're always making sure that we're on top of that so we know what's coming next. And probably about 2 years ago, we were looking at our list of the potential opportunities that we had for exhibit, and we decided on protest, modern protest. And so for a while, we called it the exhibit Modern Protest, probably for about 6 months before we actually found out or developed our title, which is now Unwavering 21st Century Activism. And so the current national protests were not happening when we finalized our exhibit plans. Everything had kind of like gone to bed. We were ready. We'd already sent everything to the designer and the printer. And then George Floyd was murdered. And we immediately realized we had to, because we were doing this topic, we knew we had to incorporate the national protests and even the local protests that were happening. So we were able to include some of the things that were happening in real time into the exhibit. So I think people will be.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's such a sobering topic. Yeah, to be able, and we've been striving for relevancy for a long time, and you know, I would probably have to say this is probably the most relevant and real time that we've ever been. To think that we actually have components of our exhibit that showcase what happened this summer. So, so I think people will be enlightened, you know, and I think will be moved by the content, and people will have come in and said, oh, I was at that protest on that mural that you have. I was there and I tried to find myself, you know, or, you know, I know what's happening. I know the people who were there. I was impacted by what's happening right now, or I am living through this right now. I'm going to protests, and I'm participating in rallies and wanting my voice to be heard. So I think not only is it something that's happening in real time and it's relevant, I think it's giving, empowering, particularly our young people, to use their voices in ways they might not have used it before. So it's really an impactful and powerful exhibit we have right now.
I am nearly speechless. Like, I got goosebumps when you were telling that story, just how people can see themselves as part of history. You know, like I mean, museums, I feel like there's kind of this idea that they document history, right? And like that people can see themselves as part of a movement, not just being in part of a crowd or part of like being in camaraderie and being an ally, but like to step back and be able to see themselves at a distance in that is really incredible. Yeah. That's an incredible pivot that you made. It
really is.
Because exhibits really take a lot to plan and execute.
They do. They do. And, you know, this is why we have our permanent exhibit, Endless Possibilities, but our temporary gallery, our changing gallery, we change that every year. And, you know, every now and then when the opportunity finds us and we're able to do other pieces, you know, we take advantage of that. But this has really been, I think, a labor of love. I mean, there's a lot of exhibits, topics that we've wanted to do for years. I think this one, because of what's been happening nationally over the last few years, and of course, the infusion of technology, and I think that people are a lot more awake to what is happening. And George Floyd's murder on video certainly was another eye-opener for so many more people who maybe hadn't had that awakening yet. And so I think this is something that we are able to engage people, for them to be able to reflect and have conversations, and really be a part of what's happening right now. And, you know, it's interesting, in the exhibit, we have a section of the exhibit where people are invited to consider ways that they can become an advocate or an activist. Yeah. And so we have this wall that has all these little cards, and there's little sections, and you can take a card and it has the little logo on the back, But on the one side, it'll tell you some ideas for how you can become an activist. For instance, write to a company that you feel has done something unfair or biased. So you can write a letter or an email. You can volunteer at a local nonprofit. You can raise money for a cause you believe in. You can join a neighborhood watch or a group, which I think is really cool. You can pick up litter in your neighborhood. You can build a free library. We got to have libraries all over the place. You can bring a friend to our exhibit. You can donate money to a nonprofit that you believe in or a cause. You can attend a protest or a rally. You can create awareness using social media. You can write an op-ed piece for the newspaper. And I think a big one, you can contact your local or state legislator. So I like that we have these opportunities, because a lot of people call us since this exhibit, and even before that, what can we do? How can we use our voice? How can we use our skills and talents? What can we do? And I think having those suggestions, recommendations that people can kind of just take with them and follow up on it on their own has been really meaningful.
I agree. That's such a deliberate part of the exhibit that I think really speaks to like community engagement too, making a change.
Absolutely.
And I really like how diverse those actions were in terms of like what kind of time investment. It takes hardly no time to pick up litter, right?
Right.
And
right.
I think that it's really interesting, especially in social media. Most everybody has a phone in their hand these days. And I just want to kind of circle back to how you mentioned that you felt as though this exhibit was really powerful for young people as well. Like, do you have any thoughts, especially since some young people pretty well,
Yeah.
how this exhibit might be exceptionally engaging to teenagers or young adults, or parts of the exhibit that they can engage with outside of the museum somehow?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
I think, well, I will say that we have had a lot of requests for groups of students. They have wanted to come. They called us and asked, can they come before hours, after hours, during our regular hours, which are limited, of course, because of the pandemic. And I think it brings to life what they see on TV, what they see on social media. If they haven't participated in an actual rally or march, I think it kind of brings they're in it. They're like literally standing next to a life-size mural of a rally or a protest. And so I think that is very meaningful and powerful for them. I think in terms of what they can use, what they can take with them when they leave. And I think you said it when I showed or shared the different ways that they can be activists in their own community. There was a broad range, from, you might not have, maybe a teenager doesn't have a lot of money, so they maybe can't donate a chunk of money to a nonprofit, but they could donate their time, or their skills and talents to a nonprofit. And I think that they are wanting to do, I've met so many young people, whether or not it's elementary, middle school, high school, and college age students, or even young professionals who are just starting out, who want to do something. And they've been empowered to go and make those changes in the community. People have often provided feedback to us about what they are doing now because of what they learned when they came through the exhibit. So it definitely is giving inspiring and motivating action in the community by our young people. They're ready to do something. They're ready to use their voices and their skills. And so we're glad to be a part of pushing them to make those actions
realities. That's wonderful. That's so fabulous. I will mention, after the interview portion of this program, I have slides ready for the current exhibits that are at the African American Museum. So all you patrons out there, hold tight. You don't need to write anything down. I'll show you. And then there's the website, blackiowa.org, right? So I'm going to put that information at the very end of this interview. So I would highly recommend everybody getting out and taking a look, because you are open. Again, I think it's weird. Some people don't know, like, is it open? Is it not? Should I go?
Yeah, and we know, and after the storm, and then we closed again, and then you open back up. So we are open Thursday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And obviously, if there's people who want to schedule tours, you can reach out to us on our website at blackiowa.org to request a scheduled tour, a guided tour, and we will accommodate those requests as we're able to outside of our regular business hours. So as long as there's a request made and we can do it, we'll do that.
That's amazing. One thing that I do want to mention is we were speaking right before this interview, and what we haven't talked about yet is the bookstore. I hear you got some new books in your bookstore, right?
So we do. We have a
Do you
gift
want
shop,
to just
and
show off some of those?
yeah, absolutely. I did bring a few books with me. I wanted to make sure that people knew that because of this exhibit, and every time we have a temporary exhibit, we really try our best to make sure there's content in our gift shop that complements what's in the exhibit. I must say that it was very easy to find books on protest and activism, and so we do have several books. I didn't bring them all with me, but we have this book that's geared towards school-age children. I'm an activist. We do have a board book that I neglected to bring with me, but a board book about becoming an activist. Those are for those preschoolers or kindergartners who may be interested. I think everybody's at least somewhat familiar with white fragility. And we have this in the store as well. How to be an anti-racist. I think this is a journal. This is a journal that complements that book, being anti-racist.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. And then we rise, we resist, we raise our voices. And these are geared toward young adults. So there's there's a few more books that we have down there. And I invite patrons to not only visit the exhibit, but also come into the bookstore and look at the content that we have there, in addition to our regular branded merchandise. So I think you'll find something that you could certainly utilize to become more enlightened about what's happening right now.
And as you demonstrated, there's something for everyone, from the youngest to adults. So that's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you sincerely for spending time with us this morning. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the wonderful things you're doing for our community as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to share.
From all of us here at the Cedar Rapids Public Library, thanks for watching.
If you get a chance, you should make your way over to the African American Museum of Iowa to see this exhibit on wavering. It'll be there through the summer of 2021, and there you will also find the permanent exhibit of Endless Possibilities, which takes visitors across space and time from West Africa to Iowa today. Additionally, for a very short time, a timely traveling exhibit that you'll be able to find at the African American Museum of Iowa is Toward a Universal Suffrage. It's a project from the Central Iowa Community Museum, and its last day at the AAMI is the 31st of October, and then it's on to Hiawatha and then to Kirkwood. So make sure you check the website to see where and when to find it. For more information about the African American Museum of Iowa, its exhibits past and present, events, and educational opportunities, visit blackiowa.org. Now, to put the read in Read Woke, I have a couple of suggestions for readers young and old out there. The first is Stamped, which is a remix of the book Stamped from the Beginning, which is a book that was published for adults by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Jason Reynolds, in effect, translates that work for adults into one that is more digestible for young adults and middle schoolers, and it's simply called Stamped. Now, I thought that it would be really interesting to show you in his own words what Jason Reynolds thought about both the book for adults and how he translated this book for young adults. He said that the original book was a true north in the way that we talk about racism in this country. So a guiding principle, if you will. Part of the fun and challenge of writing Stamped was figuring out ways to take huge ideas, and these ideas, really complex ideas, and taking them from an ocean to a raindrop without using any of the H2O. And what I thought was really interesting about this book in particular is that he figured out a way to put us all in a conversation, which involves history certainly, but in the present as well. What's happening now, what's to come if we're not careful, by examining what's happened already. It truly puts us right in the middle of what's going on in today's social justice climate. Other recommendations on this topic are Steal This Country, a handbook for resistance, persistence, and fixing almost everything. by Alexandra Styron, and Nevertheless We Persisted, which is a collection of 48 different voices telling their stories about defiance of cultural norms and finding the strength and courage to do so. Another book that I think would be both relevant and empowering for young people is We Say #NeverAgain, which is written by student journalists from Parkland High School, telling their own story as well as that of the movement that has come from one tragedy. This book is also edited by teachers from that school district, so it's as close to the experience and voices represented as possible. And a final book for mature teens and young adults is a book written for adults called On the Other Side of Freedom by DeRay McKesson. He's been called the leader of the millennial activism movement, and he began his road to social justice with his participation in and documentation of the Ferguson protest. He has publicly advocated for victims of police violence and to end mass incarceration. And because I appreciate other ways of getting my information and because of the timeliness of them, these two audio articles appeared on NPR the weekend before this video goes out to all you folks out there. One has to do with parents learning from kids, so all you grown-ups, listen up, and to you young people, you have more influence over your grown-ups than you might think. And then there's also an interview with Dr. Kendi, and the title, as you can see, is Racism is Death, Anti-Racism is Life. A powerful statement that makes activism even more important when you frame it that way. Again, for more information about the African American Museum of Iowa, please visit blackiowa.org. We're so grateful that Ms. Cassell was able to spend some time with us today, and we send our sincere thanks to all the folks that made that happen as well. As usual, if you have any questions about the Read Woke Challenge or any other questions for the library, please call us at 319-261-READ or visit crlibrary.org. From all of us at the Cedar Rapids Public Library, thanks for watching.